My name is Michael Corbidge, and I work at the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford, and I'm one of a team of voice directors, voice coaches, and I feel that I'm one of the luckiest people in the world because I work for a company where there is a designate voice department, and I think I'm right in saying it's the only one in the world that is full-time. There are voice coaches who are working for big companies at the national and also at the globe, but we have an incredible history of voice and text at the RSC, and so it has this dedicated department which I'm a part of, and it's a real thrill for me because I'm passionate about words, and I'm passionate about Shakespeare's words, but even more, if I kind of want to get right down to it, I'm passionate about Shakespeare's sounds. I believe it's the sounds that he has put down on paper that take us into the world of the character. So, yes, great playwright, amazing stories, fabulous characters, beautiful script, fantastic thoughts and ideas and intentions of a character, but actually I'm interested in sounds. And I get an opportunity in my job, right across the spectrum, and I'll tell you all the different things that I do, but in the rehearsal room, I'm able to explore sound in a very, very deep and concentrated way. And I'm going to take you into, if you like, a day in the life of a rehearsal. I get deployed to do a production. So there is a lot of planning at the RSC. They're planning 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance. And you get a tremendous sense of what is going to happen. We don't quite know what shows we're going to be attached to, but I knew that I was going to be attached for the spring production of The Winter's Tale, directed by Lucy Bailey. Lucy Bailey is well known to the company. She did Taming of the Shrew last year, and before that Julius Caesar. So I was very excited about working with her. I haven't worked with her before, and very excited to work for a woman because a lot of the work I've done historically at RSC has been with men, so I was thinking this is a whole new opportunity. So I was very excited about working with Lucy Bailey. Tremendous track record, fantastic visionary. I hadn't worked with a female director for some time, so I was excited about that. And we got to have a conversation before we started rehearsal, some months before the process started. She was talking about her vision, her concept for the piece, and basically what she felt that I could offer and also what I wanted to offer. So that's always a great meeting because you go away with ideas and you go away with a sense of having collaborated, even though it's quite a short time, but you get a sense of perhaps who you both are and how you can work together. We started rehearsing in December of last year, December 2nd, 7-week rehearsal period. Now my job in the rehearsal room is to be there every single day, for every rehearsal hour, to take the show, transfer it to Stratford, to take it through its technical rehearsals, to go through the preview period, and then press, and then official opening, and then to stay on and to what we call maintain, manage the show after that. And this is a show that was going to have a limited season and then go on tour, a national tour. So this is what I do basically. We'll start basic and then we'll go to the detail. I have a responsibility to the actors. I have to make sure that the actor has a really safe, secure, working, healthy mechanism. I have a huge responsibility to the actors, to the cast. They've all been chosen, they've all auditioned, and she's created a company. And
No, aqui está desligado o sinal comigo.
is that okay? So I have a huge responsibility to the actors. They've interviewed and they've cast for it and they've been successful, so they've been chosen. And I have to work very quickly to ascertain that they are all healthy speakers, that they have a good, secure, stable, working mechanism. I then have to understand the quirks of each actor, so vocal quirks. And those are quite interesting because somebody might be a little nasal. Somebody might be quite softly spoken, quite airy. Somebody might be working with a bit of tension. So does that make sense to you? So what I'm doing is kind of, I have a buffet of actors, if you like. And I've got to go, oh, you do this and you do this. And sometimes it's not a bad thing. Sometimes that quirk could be idiosyncratic and useful to the character or not. Sometimes I have to go, you cannot do that. And so I have to work with them to address that situation and, if you like, get them back on track with their voice. We go into very big spaces. So our auditorium at the RSG is 1,000 seats plus. And I have to, from day one, in my eye line, my sight line, if you like, is to have them transfer their skills from rehearsal day one to that big space. I'm responsible for making sure that every single audience member who's paid ticket money can hear, because that's the basic negotiation first of theatre, commercial theatre or subsidised theatre, is that I pay to hear you. If I don't hear you, then that trade is broken. It's not reciprocal.
Can they use the microphone?
We don't use microphones at all. It's all what we call acoustic voice. However, microphones are used to enhance for certain reasons. It could be a stylistic choice. But it's very, very rare that an actor would be put on mic.
So it has to be projection of the voice.
It all has to be to do with power. And you mentioned the word projection, and some people use the word shout and loud. Those are three words that are not in my vocabulary, because I do work on that power base, and I do work over the rehearsal period, to get them to be really fit, so building stamina. But sometimes that stamina doesn't come with, massive voice. It comes with the power of your thought. So if your intention is clear behind the words, if you are really connected to the conventions of the rhetoric, the storytelling that Shakespeare's given you, then you will land that thought. And my great mentor friend Sis talks about this. You don't have to be big in space. You can actually bring them. You can be quite quiet and connect without being, blasting it away. So I do a lot of physical work, which is about ribs and diaphragm, and all that's about ease of breath and dropping to core, what we call core seat, the sort of, if you like, the engine of our voice. And but a lot of it's to do with the muscularity of thought. And the muscularity also happens in the muscularity here of the organs of articulation. So I'm a great believer that if you're on the thought, the inspiration of your thought is really clear, and the breath is connected to that inspiration, you'll land that thought. And I see it all the time in the shows that I work on, where somebody is working perhaps alone on stage, having a very intimate moment, and has pulled 2,000 plus ears into that world, which is beautiful. So, going back to the rehearsal room, I then have to think about the story. I keep saying I'm every member of the audience, and I think that's what my job is about. I am every single person in that seat, all those seats of the auditorium. My job is to make sure story is told, and if I don't get story, I just say, sorry, I didn't hear what you said. It's not, but I was speaking loudly. I said, well, I know you're speaking loudly, but I don't hear what you're saying. So I can be quite brutal at times. Like, sorry, you could be speaking in another language. I don't understand what you're saying. So therefore, some part of that message has not embedded into that actor. And of course, this is negotiated with me and the director and the actor. And during the process, I would take an actor off for a personal voice call, or two actors, or even a scene, and work with them in a much more intensive way and I work very physically with voice. I'm a great believer that text is visceral. It's got to be up on its feet. It's got to be moved. It's got to be connected into a space and activated. So one of my big demands is getting actors out of their heads, so getting them out of that sort of academic, cerebral, frontal lobal, trapped academic pursuit of text, and getting information through the body.
Do you work with silence, pauses too?
I work with everything that the text proffers. I think Shakespeare wrote a very practical document, and there were clues on the page through punctuation, through the line endings, the relationship between the first and the last word, the antithesis. And he was a master of rhetoric. And today we don't really use perhaps as much as Shakespeare did in his day, although we are all involved with persuasive speaking. We're all involved with, taking one side of an argument. And his rhetoric was about that, the power of persuasive speaking. So I play a sort of text detective. I say, look, what can we uncover from this? Say it this way, try that. Isolating a word, isolating a clause, connecting it to the whole chord. And I play lots of interesting games and exercises to get them thinking in different ways, getting them to think out of the box. And suddenly their whole body kind of goes, oh, that's interesting. Because if you put text up here and you just become very heady and you dislocate the body, you're going to sound very odd. But if you activate the body first and then put the head back, there's a kind of union, and it all starts to become connected. And Lucy Bailey understands this and would say to me, prime the actors on text before I even see them, get them going, so they've got something to offer in the space. So that was a great joy for me to actually go, okay, well I'm the first person who has an effect on text. So in the rehearsal period, a little further on, when people have learnt their lines, people are moving in the space and connecting story, I become a very, very acute listener. I've learned to listen like an animal. I'm like a fox. I'm like a cat, a dog. I've got to the point where I listen so hard that it hurts when I've stopped the job. When you stop, your ears are kind of going, what's that? It's all very acute noise, and it hurts. So I'm used to hearing when meters adrift. I'm used to hearing a lack of consonant agility. I'm used to hearing drop phrase, what we call a dying chord. I'm used to hearing non-elasticity of vowels. I'm used to hearing non-muscularity. So it can be quite painful because every mistake stabs me in my chest like a knife. So it's my job to note the actor. So I like saying, you said that, but I couldn't hear the ending. Now, if every actor lost their ending, there would be no story, because in the verse ending there is the story word, and if you don't promote the story word, then the audience aren't going to hear the bounty of that story. They're not going to hear the joy of it. And talking of joy and bounty, sometimes there just isn't that joy of speaking the verse. It's a little bit flat, so I have to work on range. So we have approximately 3 octaves of voice notes, and that's a lot, 32 voice notes. I'm not talking about singing notes, I'm talking about voice notes. And there's a fundamental difference between the female voice and the head here and the male voice here. But there's a crossover between the notes that we share. And I've got to make sure that those are active, and that they remain active, and that they provide colour and texture. So they colorize how we speak. Because in normal day-to-day we only work on 3 or 4 notes. We don't have to be particularly bizarre, saying, oh, hi, I love your coral necklace, it really suits you, because we'd sound bizarre and fake. But we accept that there's there's a certain artifice in the theatre. I'm not saying that we are artificial, but verse is not real language, it's heightened, so it has a quality that we need to embrace, and we need to find that bounty. So we have to do a lot of work on building colour in the voice notes, because it's pleasing. And I'm going to say something I'll probably be struck off the camera, but we have eardrums as a listening audience. We're an audience because we're auditory. You know, we're not viewers like watching a film or TV. We talk about television viewers, but in the theatre we talk about an audience. We go to have a listening experience, and when I'm in the theatre, I want my ears to be made love to. I want to have a really gorgeous experience with beautiful words. You know, I want my eardrums to be kissed, if you like. There's nothing worse than, you know, not being kissed. And you come out and go, that was the dreariest play. And any dreary play that starts, I don't stay, my life's too short. I'm gone at the first scene. So colour is really, really vital, because we paint pictures. And we know that Shakespeare was the master of imagery. And even though now we have beautiful sets and costumes and multimedia and lighting and all the pyrotechnics that go to make theatre, we still love to be told a story through pictures. And those images, you know, the audience of his day were reliant on, those were the sets, those were the pictures. And so we mustn't negate that. We've got to really home in and capitalise on and create beautiful pictures. And when an actor does it well, Jonathan Slinger did the last closing speech of Prospero last year in The Tempest. And it made me cry. It made me cry every single time. And the audience. And the applause, there was no applause, because he just left them hanging, and it was almost that sense of wonder. And then he would say, it's okay, you can applause. Because it was a moment, in the first time in my living history of the end of a play, where people would have been happy just to be in silence. Another part of the job is to constantly refer back to the director, saying, this person has got this person has that, I need to do this. So always having negotiation and always asking, what do you need? What do you need from this person? And they would often tell me, and some things that I hadn't particularly realised or noticed. So again, you know, coming together, and we'd have a physical practitioner in the room, so that was always a massive support for me and for the director. And we'd also have a specialist accent coach. Not on all productions, but accents. And we were in this production of Winter's Tale, we were in the very rural north, and it had to be very specialist, which is not my specialism. So again, 4 of us, 4 heads, you know, better than one. Everybody working for the same goal, no egos, working for the play. I remember one of the greatest things someone saying to me was, serve the play, serve the text, which I'm a great believer of. I also have to think about the voice world. So we talk about the play, Winter's Tale is in 2 very distinct halves, as you know. We've got this tragedy, a roller coaster ride of human emotion. It's absolutely tragic. And then we have this pastoral green play comedy. 16 years between the 2, and an interval just to kind of make sure people realise that that's where we are at. And I have to create, maintain, manage the voice world, so I've got to craft the world of the voice. So making sure that there's parity of voices within scenes, within acts, within the first half and then the second half. So bringing a kind of unity, a parity, a kind of united vocal quality that makes the play sound connected. Even though it might be regional dialects, it could be different ethnicities, it still has to have a common denominator. So that's something that I have to work quite hard on. prior to the rehearsal period, I have about 2 months where I go through the play in detail. I use all my resources, including ShakespeareDictionary.com. All the great books. There's a fantastic book by the Crystal Brothers, which is amazing. And I go through the play.
Crystal, father and son.
Yes, I make sure I understand the play. And of course, it's ridiculous for anyone to go, I know this play. There were things that I just thought, I did not understand it. I've tried to understand it. I've looked at the Arden, I've looked at the Oxford, I've looked at the RSC edition, I've looked at Cambridge. I still don't get it. Neither did the director. So, what does it mean? And sometimes if you look at the notes, particularly in the Arden, and the notes are like this, and they get so convoluted, and it's referring to an old world. And I'm all for Shakespeare now. What does it mean now? So we either have to have a good guess, we make it up, we cut it, we do something. But again, it's with the actors, it's about collaboration, what do we think it means? And then we go, that's what it means. We nail it, we commit to it, we dedicate that intention to it. But I don't know everything.
Can you consult other people like John Barton?
Yes, I would consult Sis, I would consult my head of department, I've consulted John in the past, I've consulted Greg. And it's often a moment that everyone goes, oh yeah, that one. Because sometimes a note to set you on a maze, and the maze is actually more complicated than actually going, oh, let's just figure it out. But you have to marry your instinct in terms of the practical and the academic, because that's the beauty of working the table round, where you all sit round and you paraphrase the text, you investigate it. So my work prior to the production is about being on guard and ready to answer any questions, because the questions usually get dropped at my door. So not am I only a kind of practical, creative and artistic kind of directorial support in the room. They also think that I know everything. What does this mean? And of course, 95% of the stuff you can give an explanation to, or advise, and so that's part of it.
What about the mixing of accents? Do you have that in the production?
What's interesting now is, particularly with this idea of Shakespeare, very much now, today, is that accents don't matter. So we might have a play and there's a timeless quality about it. It might be in quasi-modern dress. I think you were saying that you'd seen the Comedy of Errors last year. Very modern production. And all kinds of accents. And that seems to be the new vogue, but it does go in a sort of kind of vogue pattern. What is modern? What is pret-a-porter? So, of course, there were days when I was growing up where the BBC was the BBC and everybody spoke with gorgeous kind of Queen's English and very RP. And then, things change and it relaxes. So people read the news and they've got a Birmingham accent, or they're from the West Country, and it doesn't really matter. And I'm all for regional accents. I adore them, and I think they have a great colour, and they build towards such a beautiful tapestry of voice. What we have to be aware of, though, in Stratford, because we have a lot of foreign visitors, regular foreign visitors, universities coming in with swathes of students. We have our local audiences, we have our regional audiences, that accents are accessible, because it does take time to tune in. And I remember living in Asia, trying to tune into certain accents, and it took a long time to pick up what somebody was saying. So we have to be very mindful of making sure that it's incredibly clear, and that what we're talking about is not masked by accent work. And if I can use this analogy, when I went to drama school and I trained as a classical actor myself, one of my teachers said to me, remember you are always playing the three people up in the circle. And those people have got very different qualities of receiving information. And they're very challenged. One of them is blind, so they can't see you. So their aural perception is much more engaged. One of them is deaf, so they need to see how story is told through the body, and they need to get gesture and expression, facial expression if they can see it. And the other one is foreign, so they don't have a clue what's going on, right? They hear it, but they don't know what you're saying. They see it. Okay. So, and I thought that was a really, really clear idea of an audience demographic, right? And of course you've got children, and of course you've got students, and we know that Shakespeare is a struggle for some. So we really work very hard to make it very clear. And I'm very proud of the Winter Tale because I think it is extraordinarily good storytelling. And I think the rhetoric has been exposed to an inch of its life, and the audience get that. And you know that they've got it because they are. An actor's job is to bring the audience with, this is the actor, this is the audience, bring them with you. Okay? If the audience get it, and they've gone, shh, we've got it, it's just, they're waiting for the actor to catch up. If you've lost them, they'll never catch up. You've got to take them on a journey. And you do that with the way that you engage, and you engage vocally. So once the show is up and running, during tech we just sort of manage the space and any issues that come with space. What happens with the actors is they will make a visit to Stratford, because we rehearse in London. We don't have the good fortune of rehearsing in the space, because as you know, it's a repertory, there's always something going on, you don't have the space to, and also it's expensive to billet actors every day. So they come up for what's called an away day, where they work in the space with me, they work with the movement coach, they understand the dynamics of the acoustic space, the challenges, they get time to play on the stage, and then they take that back with them to the London studio and go, remember, so we're always giving them something to think about. And of course when we come to tech, they start to put it all together. They start to work a new geography and a new vocal geography. And I'm there with every single actor, just. So what I have basically is a dossier on every single actor. This is who they are, and this is what they do, and this is what they need support on, and also what they do brilliantly. It's not always about the negative. It's like, this is what we can enhance and capitalize on and really make amazing. But these are the things that I just need to think about. So if I think about all the little bits and bobs, and then I've got to kind of put it all together and turn it into one big world of voice to give it some intelligibility and gorgeousness of the audience, kind of go, oh, I'm just bathed in beautiful language. That's what I want to be, bathed in beautiful language. When you talk about successes, I guess there is one, and I worked with a lovely Palestinian actor, Liana Leão, and he was cast as Caliban in a production, again directed by a Palestinian, and he, brilliant actor in his own native language, film actor, and had some huge success in film. I think I'm right in saying that his foreign film got the Oscar, so it's big stuff. But he wasn't a natural English speaker, certainly not a Shakespeare speaker, and I had a stretch of time to get him really proficient English speaking, and then even more proficient with the Shakespeare, to understand the complexities and the bounty and the joy of this text, and then get him on stage feeling confident, comfortable, credible, able-bodied. And he He was absolutely sensational. And I thought, how am I going to attack this? Because there was a degree of teaching I had to do, and a degree of training, and a degree of direction. And no director really wants to train actors on the spot when they're directing, and they certainly want to teach them. And you often find that with young novice actors, that's your job as a director. It's like, I need you to do this, they can't do it, so therefore you've got to go back a few stages, which is complex and time-consuming. So I went back as if it were first day at school with English. And we played with language, we played with text. He got really comfortable, he understood it. And we just built daily. I saw him every day, just incrementally, built. And the first time he read, the read-through, which is the classic everyone gets together, he was terrified, unsure, self-conscious. He made the most, basic mistakes. And the director said, he is a great actor. Just work your magic. And I did. And I have to say, he spoke Shakespeare beautifully, better than some, British actors, if you get my drift. But he absolutely got it. And I was very proud because we got great notices as well. And of course, it was quite inspired casting, and I knew why. And also, he was working with a fellow actor director, so he had a lot of comfort there as well. And I have to say that was exceptionally rewarding. Yeah.
When was this production?
That was last year. We did the Shipwreck trilogy, the three 12th Night, Comedy of Errors, and The Tempest. Followed later in the year by Pericles, so that was the fourth, what are called shipwreck plays. It's all about displacement and diaspora.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then also you just work with actors who are young and not very confident, so you just keep taking them to a new threshold and making them incredibly secure, because we all get insecure about stuff. It's because we lose power, we lose control, and lose confidence. And those are my three big words: confidence, power, and control. And why do you lose power, confidence, and control? And what makes you feel confident, and empowered and in control? And it's knowledge, isn't it? It's about knowledge, it's about doing, it's about securing what you do, it's about, rehearsing constantly. And acting is no different from giving a presentation. We all get fearful of that, because sometimes we're not in the zone of presenting ourselves all the time. But I've never said this before, so this is a one-off. I think I'm a text therapist. I work very therapeutically with text. And I've loved Shakespeare since I was a little boy. My grandfather used to read me the Lamb Tales. I was going to Stratford when I was a little boy. I had a very fruitful and active time in drama at school. And in my sixth form, I went to drama school. I was still going to Stratford through my drama school days. So Shakespeare was never a mystery. And at 11 years of age, myself and my twin brother, I'm the twin, so I'm duplicated. We played Lysander and Demetrius in Midsummer Night's Dream, which confused the audience because we're identical. They were kind of going, how did that happen? So I was playing classical text and principal juvenile roles when I was 11. So I've always seen it as a joy. I know people find it hard and complicated and panic because of the 400 years of academia that's followed Shakespeare's tale. So I've always addressed Shakespeare in a very commonsensical, calm, casual way, and I work like that in the studio.
Where's your twin? Is he here? Am
No,
I talking to the twin now?
Some people say, hang on a minute, that's a very clever switch.
Does he work in the theater?
No, no, he doesn't. He's a money man.
Oh,
yes.
Better.
So yes, one of us went for no money, and one of us went for the money.
Oh, good.
So I guess that shows the balance of it.
Do you switch sometimes with him?
We used to play funny games when we were at school because we sounded very similar, so we'd always confuse our girlfriends.
Woo!
And we sort of get each other out of mischief sometimes. Not as case.
But even the voice is the same.
Similar, yes. I went to what's called an elocution teacher. I don't know if you know about. Those were very strange lessons. I went with a very much older lady who talked about elocution, and it was about speaking correctly. It's a very old-fashioned form of speech education, and it's not revered like it used to be. And I called it electrocution because it was incredibly painful. So that's basically what I do. Now, when I come back to the theatre, I look at the shows every night for a while. I note the actors. I make their lives a living hell. I tell them what's wrong. If there's things that I think are really desperately wrong, I will call them the next day into a space and go, this is not working. Or we work on the stage. I warm the actors up. I make sure that they're in tip-top vocal condition. I monitor their health. If they are unwell, we take them to the ear, nose and throat specialists. We have masseurs on hand. We have all kinds of medical support. They get access to steaming machines. They get access to everything we need to support them. And my relationship starts to diminish slightly because I will still go in 2 or 3 times a week. I will still note them. But by then the show is in repertory, it's all working. We never leave it. There's never a time in the week where I'm not somehow connected to that show and noting it. Because, we know in the long performance, the long run, that things go wrong and actors get tired and lazy and, just natural things happen. And there isn't that drive as there is in the rehearsal period to keep momentum and a propulsion of working up. And we just are there to keep it tight and bright and light.
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, your job sounds fascinating when you talk about it.
It is.
You're really passionate about it.
It is fascinating, and I am passionate about it. When I'm not working on the show, I'm teaching in universities, drama schools, colleges. I lecture in voice studies. I work with community theatre companies. I work with people who are ill, who have suffered stroke, paralysis. So in Singapore I work with an ENT specialist and a speech therapist because sometimes they can't figure it out, they need the third man in the loop. So ENT often like cut, slice. Therapists are trained in psychotherapy and they connect with a pathologist. But I'm not trained in psychotherapy or pathology, but I can unlock a voice another way. And often I'm the third person in the triangle. And they often say, can you have a look at this person first, what do you think? And I can give a medical diagnosis with no medical background. So a woman came to me with absolute paralysis of the vocal cord, senior member of the American Express team. The biggest top job in Asia she had. She had birth trauma when she gave birth to her son. She didn't know what to do. And within 8 months I had her speaking on a normal voice. But it's just unlocking the way I would unlock an actor. So
incredible.